Yes, Digital Asset Summit.
To everyone at the Blockworks Digital Assets Summit. It's an honor to speak with you about how the United States is going to dominate crypto and the next generation of financial technologies. And it's not going to be easy, but we're way ahead. Just 2 weeks ago, we hosted the first ever White House Digital Asset Summit, bringing together many of the world's top leaders in crypto for a conversation led by our White House AI and crypto czar David Sachs, who's a fantastic and very brilliant guy. That same week, I signed an order creating the brand new strategic Bitcoin reserve and the U.S. digital asset stockpile, which will allow the federal government to maximize the value of its holdings instead of foolishly selling them for a fraction of their long-term value, which is exactly what Biden did. He got a fraction of their value. We're ending the last administration's regulatory war on crypto and Bitcoin, and that includes stopping the lawless Operation Choke Point 2.0. Operation Choke Point went beyond regulation, and I mean far beyond. It was a form of lawfare through government weaponization. Frankly, it was a disgrace. But as of January 20th, 2025, all of that is over. I've also called on Congress to pass landmark legislation creating simple, common sense rules for stablecoins and market structure. With the right legal framework, institutions large and small will be liberated to invest, innovate, and take part in one of the most exciting technological revolutions in modern history. It's so big, it's, I think, as big as you can get. Pioneers like you will be able to improve our banking and payment system and promote greater privacy, safety, security, and wealth for American consumers and businesses alike. You will unleash an explosion of economic growth, and with the dollar-backed stablecoins, you'll help expand the dominance of the U.S. dollar, and many, many years to come, it'll be at the top, and that's where we want to keep it. We only want to keep it at the top, always. I can already see that the energy and passion of the crypto community is the kind of spirit that built our country, and it is exciting to watch as you invent the future of finance. And right here, it's going to be right here in the USA, the good old USA. Together, we will make America the undisputed Bitcoin superpower and the crypto capital of the world. Thank you. Good luck. God.
All right. A lot of people wanted to talk about this. So we've got Guy here talking about, because we talk a lot about gold, precious metals, and the economy, but people wanted to hear about what Trump was saying. First, I have a question for you. Trump at the beginning mentions Biden selling assets. Do you know what he's talking about?
He's talking about generally the U.S. government selling Bitcoin and other governments as well.
When we would like confiscate it or whatever, we would just immediately sell it.
Right. And I know Germany did a lot of this, right? And people that really believe in Bitcoin, they're all about the HODL strategy. Hold on for dear life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Michael Saylor always preaches, never sell your Bitcoin.
Right.
And that's the kind of strategy that he wants to adopt for the Bitcoin Strategic Reserve. Unlike, Biden was less of a believer in Bitcoin and more willing to sell it.
Yeah. So it's exciting. Doesn't get into too many details about exactly what's going to happen, but obviously he's been very pro crypto on many levels, and he's talked about having a reserve. What do you think that would do? What do you think that reserve?
Well, I think the biggest thing it does is it just signals, as to the legitimacy of Bitcoin. It also helps the price over the long run. If we do have a bill that ends up getting passed that requires the U.S. government to purchase about 1 million Bitcoins over 5 years, of course, it's going to help the price, right? Because it's going to reduce the supply. But generally, I think the bigger impact comes from the signal that it sends, right? Mm-hmm. The legitimacy that it gives Bitcoin, right? That a major superpower uses it as in its strategic reserve, right? Yeah. So
it's been good for El Salvador, right? I mean,
it's been pretty good for El Salvador, yeah. And it's been good for MicroStrategy and as a company, right? Yeah. It's performed really well, converting its cash reserves, to significant portion to Bitcoin, and other companies are looking to do that. And I think it's the largest growing asset class in the last 10 years. So it makes sense to have some of your reserves in it.
Yeah.
Right? Why wouldn't you? I mean, we're not talking about all of your reserves.
Right.
We're talking about
they're
small amount.
And the government under Trump, they're selling some of the real estate, they're selling some assets, and they're like reallocating, which I think we haven't really done as a country in a long time. We've kind of just held on to certain things because we've held on to certain things. So it sounds like we're sending a signal that we have this, we're going to have this reserve. It'll make us look stronger. Do you think it in any way helps or hurts the U.S. dollar?
I think if anything, it helps the U.S. dollars. It's working with the U.S. dollar too, right? And it's not just all about Bitcoin. I think he was trying to also talk about crypto. Bitcoin maximalists might not be happy about veering outside of Bitcoin, but really it's about the blockchain technology. And stablecoin is a big part of the initiative of the White House. They're expected to sign a bill in the next few months, and I think that technology itself helps just make the whole financial system more efficient. The settlement times are fast. It's as transparency. There's a lot that the technology itself brings to the table. So it's not just about Bitcoin. It's about crypto in general. And when you put the dollar together with it, it becomes powerful because stable coins is essentially just a wrapper on the dollar, right? Mm-hmm. So it's backed by U.S. dollar, but it makes the U.S. dollar much more efficient in how you can transact. It's basically can help amplify the reserve status of the dollar, because this is the way in which the world is going, right? And so it's all going to be digital transactions. And so if we don't have a dollar-backed stable coin, we're going to fall behind, right?
Disadvantage, yeah.
And so it seems like the more people are willing to transact with Bitcoin, the more they would be willing to transact with any kind of stable coin, right? A lot of times Bitcoin and crypto go hand in hand. And I think they do complement each other well. So if you have a Bitcoin strategic reserve, you're going to have a mix of fiat and Bitcoin, and they all have their purpose, right?
Right.
So one can be a hedge, like gold is a hedge, right? And so they all work well together. It's not like you have to have one or the other. Just sure. Like a well-diversified portfolio.
And talking about our platform, My Digital Money, Bitcoin has always been the number one purchase coin. Ethereum, has been really close. Ethereum's kind of hasn't done what a lot of people thought it would do. Obviously high expectations, I've heard like Bitcoin Junior, all these things about Ethereum, but what's happening with Ethereum lately that you could talk about?
Yeah. So Bitcoin's always been number one. Ethereum's always been number two in terms of market cap and trading volume and everything. It's the second crypto really that is well known after Bitcoin. And it's way different because it's not just a store of value, it's a smart contracts platform. So you can actually build applications that are decentralized on top of it. So you can develop, NFTs, and there's a lot of other applications. And it's fallen behind because you have other competitors like Solana and other smart contract platforms that have performed better in terms of like their speed and transaction fees. But Ethereum is still number one for institutions, right? For example, you have Fidelity is using Ethereum to build its tokenized platform for treasuries, right?
I saw that,
so that just came out that they filed to essentially develop this tokenization platform on Ethereum. So everything could be done on the blockchain. And so Ethereum is still number one in terms of adoption overall. But there's other platforms like Solana and other cryptocurrencies that are catching up. But Ethereum did fall behind for a while, but it's starting to like resurface. It's mainly because of, again, the scalability has been down, but they're also coming up with a few upgrades this year that should help.
And Fidelity is using Ethereum because they want to be able to make it more transparent about their fund that has treasuries, right?
Yeah, so they have funds. 80% of about 80% of their assets are in treasuries, and so they have a fund, and it would be much more efficient to transact, on the blockchain. If it's tokenized, then it becomes much easier
And they
and
chose
transparent.
Ethereum over any of the other options. So
Right.
obviously, Fidelity's a pretty big company. I think they wanted to go with the highest security.
Exactly, because Ethereum shines where it shines is its security and adoption. Right, there's a lot more developers than
Sure.
some of the other platforms, and so the fact that it's been around, it has more longevity, and it has the security. Institutions tend to be more risk averse, right?
Sure.
So they would go with a platform like Ethereum that's been around, that has a lot of
Yeah.
liquidity, market cap, developers, and the security is the best.
Yeah. When we started My Digital Money, security was a big concern for us. It's part of the reason that we started this. How's it been going in My Digital Money? What are clients saying? Like, how are we performed?
So we've done pretty well in the last few years, especially. I think when you combine high growth asset like Bitcoin and other crypto with the advantages of a retirement account, it's very attractive. When you don't have to pay taxes on those big gains, and you can compound that over years. XRP has been super, super popular. Like, for a while we couldn't provide it because of the whole lawsuit, and people were always calling. There was such a big demand all the time.
Yeah, we get a call
all the time. Yeah. And finally we were able to get it, and it's been doing very, very well. Alongside the price has been probably they've outperformed the market. It's number 3 crypto now. So that's been going pretty well.
So once Ripple started last year, October, November to today, we're up. How much are we up?
We're about, I think, somewhere like 300% up.
300%.
We went from around 50 cents to, I think we're like around $2.50 now. So that's a pretty big jump.
Yeah. And to go back to security, like, we've been in business for 4 years, and we've kept clients secure.
So one of the things that we do really well is we have cold storage, right? And so most platforms, they have a combination of cold and hot wallets. So you have your assets could be exposed to the internet for a significant amount of time, and that exposes you to hacks. Ours, like 99% of the time, is in cold storage, and we also our structure, underlying structure of how we keep your assets. They're basically your asset. You own the assets, right? So even though the wallet is managed by us, legally we're not allowed to do anything with your assets. If we go bankrupt,
because it's held in a trust,
right? And you're not an unsecured creditor like with a lot of these big exchanges,
like Coinbase or some of the other ones. Like our partner, because we're partnered with a trust company, the way the trust is set up is that the assets are held in the trust.
Right. So you have auditors that are regularly coming in and looking to make sure that the assets that are held match customer records.
Correct.
And that happens not just for IRAs. So that's for our cash accounts. So that's one of the big advantages. You don't really see that a lot.
Yeah. Are you ever surprised when you talk to people just day to day that more people haven't taken, because obviously in the gold business, we see it all the time where someone will have an account in the stock market and they'll have one in gold. Are you surprised that some people haven't taken that same approach in crypto, where they're just like, okay, I have some of the stocks, and then they're diversifying? Like, I know it's happening, but it's still a low percentage that own crypto. Are you surprised?
I was always surprised, but it's getting better and better. I mean, I definitely think people are much more open to it. You have people like my parents that would never do it or investing in it. And it's popular, alongside gold.
Yeah.
And I think people are really diversifying now with the ETFs, that have come out. It's become more accessible to people that, just are used to the vehicle of stock market. Right. So that, I think, has really helped since the ETFs, and that whet people's appetite. They're like, oh, wow, I get the exposure to this asset. I'm actually doing really well. Let me go and try to own this asset directly. Right. And that really has opened the floodgates. There's still room, of course, for adoption, but I think now with a friendlier administration and actual regulations being passed this year, we expect at least 2 big bills to get passed this year. I think that it's gonna explode.
Yeah. with Bitcoin obviously kind of takes a lot of the news. Obviously you talked about Ethereum, you talked a little bit about Ripple. Is there other things this year? I mean, predictions for this year, ideas, things that are going to happen this year that you think are like close that people should be looking out for?
Yeah, well, I think the next big thing is the stablecoin bill, right? Just got passed in the House, but I think it'll probably make it to the president's desk in the next few months and get passed. And then the next thing after that is basically the market structure bill, the FIT 21, which is basically giving clarity on what's a security, what's not a security. And the SEC has already, dropped a lot of cases, right? And is becoming friendlier and friendlier. So I think just this year is going to be huge. And we have to do all of this by like the summer of 2026, right? Because at that point, then people in Congress are going to start focusing on reelection. And, this is the time to get it all done. Yeah. So I think there's going to be a lot of little wins like that. And I think this year is going to be a big year. Because that's, regulations getting passed is really, that has to happen for institutional adoption, right? So,
and it looks like Ripple just happened. Ripple just like a few hours ago, Ripple, they settled, right? They settled their, so they knew they said they were at fault, and they were, 120 million that they were supposed to pay, but they settled at 50 million. Is that right?
Yeah. So what happened was there's obviously a lawsuit going back years, alleging that they sold unregistered securities.
Right.
Now there were two types of sales. There was what they call programmatic sales, is basically selling of XRP to retail investors, individuals. And then there was another type, which is selling to institutions, right? That's institutional sale. So the judge ruled that basically they sold unregistered securities to institutions, but not to retail investors. So they won the retail side. And that's the side that the SEC was appealing, right? They were appealing, basically the fact that the judge ruled that they didn't sell unregistered securities for retail. So that was just dropped. That part was just dropped, that appeal. The other part was the institutional sales. They were found guilty of that and fined 120 million. And so now they just settled, agreed to pay 50 million of that. But now they've changed.
Who pays that?
Ripple is a company.
Just Ripple.
Yeah.
So Ripple is a company.
Yeah, they're a company.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
yeah. They're even talking about IPOing. Yeah. So,
is it really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah. So then that will raise a lot of money for XRP. And that will, of course, help the price of XRP.
It's funny. Remember, I don't know if you remember this. Many years ago, I'd always say, like, when are these guys going to go IPO? I would always ask you about that. And you're like, I don't know how they're going to do it, this and that. And we'd always go back and forth because I'm like, aren't they business? This is always the debate I've had. Oh, this is so interesting.
Yeah, XRP, I mean, look, there's a lot of cryptocurrencies that are more decentralized, and XRP is a little more centralized than a lot. So that's why a lot of Bitcoin maximalists might be against it. But, you can't go to that end state so quickly, right? I think XRP becomes more practical, but because institutions that are within the traditional finance space can adopt it, right? So, yeah, it's not fully decentralized. It's not Bitcoin, but it's something that is kind of in the middle, and it's used to, make transactions more efficient, less costly, and it's replacing the SWIFT system, which is really, inefficient.
Okay, now I got a curveball for you. If they go IPO, aren't they a security? Aren't they going against? No, I don't know. I'm not like.
I don't know.
Okay. No, because I'm saying, like, aren't they going against?
Well, that's different. The shares of the company would be a security, which is different than XRP.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's my question. So if I own Ripple right now and they IPO, my Ripple coin is not the same as the shares. It'll be two different things.
Right.
Okay.
At least that's what I think. I mean,
okay. So you couldn't turn your Ripple into it's not stock. It doesn't become stock.
I mean, I would assume not.
Okay, this is all.
But don't quote me. I don't know. But
this is so funny. This happens because this is. I don't know if you remember this. We had this conversation when we started the business. I go, aren't these businesses? When are they going to become business? They have so much net worth that's the thing. That's the utility that I've always wanted to happen. Is that because once they're a business, they can do so many other things, right? Then it gives them more flexibility. So that's quite interesting. So I've seen reports Ripple at $10, $12. People are predicting. Obviously, nobody knows. It's at 250. I mean, without saying we know where it's going to go, but it seems like it's things are going in a good direction.
Yeah, things are going in a good direction. You know, they released their stable coin, which is obviously good, and it goes along with the XRP technology, right?
Mm-hmm.
International remittances, and also, with the potential IPO and with the lawsuit kind of almost resolved. It's not officially resolved, important to say, but it should be soon in the next few weeks, I would assume. So that will, of course, help the price. And technology continues to be adopted by banks, right? You got Santander, Bank of America, and like others. So as adoption grows, I think it's going to do pretty well.
Future looks bright.
Yeah.
Last question for someone out there that maybe is watching this and goes, is it hard to get started on our platform? Is it hard to trade? Are these, is it easy? What makes it difficult for somebody?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's one of the reasons we started is to make it easy, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's pretty easy. You can sign up within 5 minutes. We have play money accounts. So if you're not, sure if you want to invest, you can play around with fake money and just see what it would be like to trade, how you would do in the real market. And we have US-based customer service. So that is what makes us different, is we actually pick up your call and we can answer questions, not just about the platform, but what is XRP, right? Just even basics. So that's kind of, as you know, why we started the business, because you wanted to reduce,
I just thought
barrier.
Not everybody wanted to do it on an app. I think that people want service.
Yeah.
And I think that when you take a leap of faith into like a sort of new speculative, like you want it to be there. You don't want an FTX situation. You want to have the win. You should get the win. And what I was seeing was that all these platforms were starting, and you could just see that they were just so focused on making money in that minute. And we've built it to be around for a long time.
Yep, absolutely. So to answer your questions, super easy. Give it a try. You can do it with there's no huge minimum, right? So you can start with a low amount if you want to just try it out.
But IRAs, I think if you have an old 401k,
there is a minimum on IRAs, 1,000. I think is the minimum. Yeah.
But that I think the tax element is what makes it so exciting on the IRA, is that you buy Ripple at, you put 10,000 in, you buy Ripple at, 250 today, and it goes to $10, you'll be at, 70 or 80,000, whatever it's worth. It's all the IRA. You don't have to pay tax right away. So that allows you to make a bigger win in the future. Because people I talk to every day, they're like, I wish I would sell my crypto, but I'm going to have to pay, $40,000 in taxes.
Yeah.
And so with having the IRA option, you avoid all that with us.
Yeah. And I noticed that people are less likely to sell when it's an IRA because,
not in an IRA.
Well, but even in an IRA, like they sell less because the understanding is you're going to keep it there for retirement,
for
right?
a long time. Oh, I see.
So even I mean, even if you sell, you're not going to take the money out, right? So you might sell, but what I like about our platform is like people ask me, are people selling right now? I'm like, well, what we do with IRAs, it's not indicative of the market, right? Like you'll see on Coinbase, people selling, but people on our platform kind of are. It's good that they're holding, right? Because then they were like, wow, this went up way more than I thought. And imagine 10, 20 years from now, they're going to be able to actually retire.
Like when Bitcoin hit 100,000, I think you and I were talking, like we thought there'd be more selling, and there wasn't. Right. It was. I mean, there was some, but it was
because a lot of people understand, like, hey, there's going to be ups and downs, but this is going like, this is still early on, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
and we're not saying, listen, you can sell whenever you want to sell, but we're just looking at the data, and the data we see is that. I think I was telling you for sure when I hit 100,000, I thought we would have had, much a higher percentage, and we did have a little bit higher than normal, but not as much as you would think,
right?
Because people do believe in the long
I think
term.
people, and people also believe that the cycle is going to peak closer to the end of this year or after. I mean, if you subscribe to the 4-year cycle, which might break at some point, right? At some point, it might just keep going up because we're going to get to a certain part of the adoption, but. I mean, I think people just thought there's more room to go up. But at some point, if you feel like you're at the peak of the bull cycle, you're going to sell, and you'll be able to just keep it in the IRA and buy back in when the price goes down, right?
Yeah. Or you can buy gold and silver too.
You can do that too.
Yeah, you can buy gold and silver with us. Which
You can park it in there.
Silver is, I think, a great. Obviously, gold's gone up a lot, but silver's, I think, a great value. So, listen, Guy, thanks for coming on. Exciting. We'll obviously have you on more. I know you're so busy, but appreciate you coming on.
Thanks
Anyone
for
has
having
any questions, go to mydigitalmoney.com. Call us. We're here to answer questions. Don't be afraid to call. I hope you thought it was interesting. If you have any questions, feel free to send them our way. Again, Guy Gottschalk, co-founder of My Digital Money, Colin Plume. Talk soon.
Thank you.